Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. It's me, Gene, from the TPO Dock Talk Podcast. We got a special edition show of the Dock Talk up for you tonight. A little bit long overdue, too, but we got this in eventually here. The top three big guns from Norton, Kansas for the Colorado Kayak Bassmasters. We got them here tonight. So let's go ahead and get this thing fired up. What's happening, folks? It's me, Gene, with the TPO Dock Talk Podcast. Just a couple episodes left here on the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network to go, man. After this that you're watching, this is a pre-recorded episode as well, just to make sure that if you're asking questions and so forth, there's a reason why we're not responding. It's because we're not technically here. But absolutely leave questions, leave any comments there, and I'm sure as the guys see that on the Facebook page or on YouTube there, we'll respond when we see it. But yeah, man, just one more to go after this. And then we are back to the TPO and the RWF Field Ops channels. That's where you will find our podcast. We'll remain on YouTube, of course, and we're going to remain on all major audio platforms for you to download. So no changes coming there other than the fact that you won't find our episodes with the Paddle and Fin after this. So any rate, so Colorado Kayak Bassmasters went to Norton, Kansas, traveled about 4.5 hours away, and man, was it worth it. Went to a fantastic fishery. You know, Western Kansas is really nothing to write home to mom about, in all honesty. It's kind of like Eastern Colorado. When the two of those connect out there, you can't really tell. But both of them look like a good solid argument that we've detonated nukes on our own soil. There's just nothing out there, man. It's just flatlands, you know, like coyotes don't even dare go out there because there's nothing to eat. But you know, as you travel a little bit further north up into the northwestern, all of a sudden the green starts kicking in, start getting closer to Nebraska there, man. And she changes into a little oasis out here in northwestern Kansas. And it's called Keith Sebelius Reservoir, closest to Norton, Kansas. And that was the site of the final regular season event. We've got one more championship, but Colorado Kayak Bassmasters went there, and dude, what a cool deal. So without further ado, let's go ahead and we're going to bring in the top three guys that finished there. All three of these guys have been on the podcast before, so they're no stranger whatsoever. They've got like reserved parking now in our virtual parking lot out there. Let's go ahead and bring in third place and also my co-host on a lot of episodes out there, Mr. Jimmy Straws. What's happening, Mr. Strawbridge? How are you, sir?
Feeling fit.
Right. You got that good chin shirt on. Got that good chin muscle. I like it.
He's my hero, man. He's my hero. He showed up at Norton and put the whooping on us.
Didn't he though? So that's second place here. The guy that was leading after day one, we were pulling, man. We thought old Nick had this here. He's long overdue. You know, it's just a matter of time before he seals that deal. But Mr. the weatherman himself, Mr. Nic Wetherill, let's bring him in. What's up, brother Nick?
Hello, everyone.
What's up,
awesome.
Nick?
What's up, James?
And then
how's it going, Gene?
Good, brother. Good. We were just, introducing. You don't have a Chen shirt, but we're going to need to get that.
No, I can right? Go. I'm not going to put on the natural Chen shirt. That ain't going to happen.
Right. Yeah. After my Great Clips stylist was trimming the back of my neck, she's like, "You're one hairy dude." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, whatever. Quit dating 12-year-olds, whatever." So anyway, speaking of 12-year-olds, let's go ahead and bring the guy that wins this thing. He comes from behind because Nick was leading this thing. This guy comes from behind. He claims on a white spinnerbait. He claims. I'm calling BS, but I don't know, who am I? I don't know. Let's get him in here, Mr. ChenChar. What's happening,
up?
Chen?
What's up? You gotta get the shirts going, baby. Let's go. Oh, what's up?
too much, man. Not too much. It's been long overdue. I'm glad you guys agreed to come on here and do this, record this thing up so we could get this aired. Dude, Norton was something special, man. That was, there's just a lot of fish in that little place. It's not a big lake, but there are a lot of fish in that place, and some of them are built pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
This is our Jim. This is our second year there. Was year one kind of similar to this, or was what was it like the first year there?
I don't think it was as abundant of quantity of fish at the first event. I could be wrong. Nick was there, I do believe, right? On the first event.
Yeah, I was there.
It seemed like it was easier, and you could just catch them pretty much any way you wanted. It was just a matter of what's going to get you the bigger bites, it seemed, this time around. And I don't know what's different, because we weren't there any later in the time of year. Actually, this time we were just there. It was actually a week earlier than last year. So I don't know.
Yeah, I would say last year
didn't
have quite the numbers. I caught more fish in practice than I did during the tournament last year.
Oh, wow. And Chen, you didn't make last year's like me, right?
Nope.
Yeah, me neither. I had my my kid's birthday, his 21st birthday party, so I had to make good on that.
Nice.
But yeah, man, the place is loaded with fish, like you said, Jim. It's no matter where you go, there were fish to be had, but there were certainly techniques and areas that were finding the dinks. And then there were some areas where you were definitely, getting into some better quality fish.
Yeah. That's what I had found out too. It was pretty specific for me. I knew where I could catch marlins. I'll be honest, I really wanted to go into that marina, but come to find out, because in practice I was sticking them in there, and I knew I wasn't going to fish there, so I got a little happy with the stick, and I was jacking on everything I could because I knew I wasn't going to fish there. Kind of
thanks.
A mean way to go, but you know what?
Appreciate that. Yeah, thanks.
That's part of the business. So I can go jack on my fish. But I was surprised nobody really went in there. It was only 4 or 5 years down there. I know you went in there, but it was a great little fishery for sure. I can't wait to go back. Next year is going to be a little earlier, though. I think we're going in August.
Nice. Yeah, no one went in there, just me. No one. Don't worry about it. Nobody consequential or anything. Wow. He jacks on my fish at the tourney. Now he's like taking shots at me from the side. Wow. Thought we were buddies, man. No, man, I'll tell you what I loved about Norton, and then I'm going to get into all three of you, and we'll find out how you guys caught him and what your game plan was. Real quick, for me, it was a win. And because my tournaments leading up to this have been a hot, real swampy dumpster fire, right, leading up to this. So for me to go in on a 2-day event and bag a limit both days, that felt, really, really good actually, because it wasn't just go to a spot, fish it, and find it. I had to make a lot of decisions throughout the day and move. Both days, I was very thankful for that New Canoe Unlimited, because I went to the dam in that wind and never once felt like I was in trouble out there. As long as I kept her pointed right, and I had to really drop that trolling motor down because my bow was coming out of the water quite a bit with the 2-footers that were rolling out there. But putting that thing, out there and actually being able to fish the dam with a crankbait. Dude, I fished that entire tournament like a grown-ass man techniques. I didn't have to throw one jerky little finesse garbage. I was able to fish with a jig, a buzz bait, a crankbait, and I was catching fish. So yeah, that felt pretty good to actually exercise those demons a little bit, and also that kind of fishing. So that's a very welcome. I wasn't sure what I felt about it after day one. It's like, it kind of feels like Red Willow in a way. I wonder how many good fishable spots, there's really going to be. But then after day 2, seeing the results come out, it's like, oh, no, this is better than Red Willow. Now Red Willow, there's a chance you can blast a 20 to a 22 every cast. Okay. So there's that.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that you can fish all around Norton, dude, and you can fish your strengths if you know what you're looking for there, and you're going to be okay. You're going to find fish. So anyway, let's go ahead and just start it there, Jim. We'll start with you, third place. You fired this thing up. So you had a little bit of background from the year prior. Going in, what was the game plan and how did that look besides destroying Gene's fish in the marina? What else was your game plan?
Leaving the house here, I was my whole time I'm thinking, what's the water level and what's the clarity of the water? That was my big thing. And then that's going to dictate kind of what I was going to do. So I really, honestly, I didn't rig any rods for the ride there because I was going to get there. I was camping down in Shady Rest. I knew I was going to get there, I don't know, Wednesday or whatever it was. And that whole day was just going to be setting up. I wasn't even going to fish that day. I was just going to set up camp and get ready. So I knew I could look at the water conditions. I could look at the color. And then that night I tied some stuff on. I went out for practice and it was a little windy in practice, not bad, but I went to the marina and I was like, whack, 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 17, 16, 16, 17 and 3/4, 18 and 1/4. And I'm like, man, I don't know if this is going to last. Let's just keep an eye on it. So I bailed on there because I didn't want to beat it up. And I went across the way down the dam and across over by those islands. And I went back in there and I found a bunch of laydowns. And I started flipping a white 6-cent stroker craw. And it was just like every single laydown that was around that stuff, they were in there. And then my next thing, I said, okay, I'm going to ease off that. And then on the final day of practice, Friday, I went back to the marina just to check and see what was going on there. And every person that had launched on Thursday, Friday, all started the marina and they kind of went in there and it got hammered. And I thought there's no way these fish are gonna stay there. They're just gonna get abused really bad. So I bailed and I went all the way to the west end and I found a bunch of stuff down there that was just laydowns all over the place. Most of it was high and dry, but a lot of it was in the water. And it couldn't be like a log laying down. It had to be the tree branches and the little fingery stuff that they were kind of tucked in. And I was just flipping in there and I got schooled a couple times on some 20-pound fluorocarbon. And I was snapping on hook sets on the snell hook. I should have been retying more often. And I lost some good ones in practice. And I lost 2 good ones on day one. One was probably pushing 20 and one was over 18. And I said, no more of that. I struggled through that on day one. And then day 2, I switched everything to braid and I just started swinging for the fences. I figured I'd come back with a set of lips if I had to, right? I'm like, I'm not breaking off, man, these fish. And I didn't break any. It's just with braid, had to change my setup, had to go to a softer rod so I could have a little flex somewhere. So I didn't rip that big slot in their mouth. But that was pretty much my day.
Nice.
My whole game plan going in. I stumbled on a solid pattern and it worked and I stuck it out. And here I am in third.
Right. Nic, talk to me about practice, man. We'll come back on the days. We'll break this down. So practice, what was going into this? You were there. You'd been there once before. So how'd that affect your practice? What'd you see, leading up to day one?
So I stopped over at Norton after Elwood for the Nebraska qualifier and found a pretty good bite in the marina. I got there on Thursday a little bit late. Thought I was going to have to work in the morning, ended up not having to. So I got there, just went fishing off the bank that first night on Thursday. Friday, I didn't even get my kayak in the water. I went to a bunch of different launches. I fished from the shore a little bit. But I wanted to check a bunch of launches that I hadn't checked the first year. I ended up launching the exact same place that I launched the first year because I found a decent limit down there. So my goal was, get into the mid to high 70s. So you have a chance for day 2. I had a really good day 1. And then had a really good day. Basically, it was the best 2 days of fishing I've ever had in a tournament. So I was stoked the whole weekend.
Yeah, your day 1, man, you were like 85, 86, something like that. And you were up there. It was a hell of a good day.
Yeah, I think it was 82 and a quarter or 82 and a half or something like that on day 1.
Yep.
But yeah, for pre-fishing, I didn't really pre-fish. I fished off the bank a little bit. I found the bite that I wanted to find actually. And I went to marginal water, what I thought was going to be marginal water, just to get away from the crowds.
Right.
The old Erica Lee trick.
That's right. So day one, 82.5. And Jim, you were in second place at 82.25, and Chen with 82. Yeah, you guys are all just neck and neck. And of course, then you got the old Sandman himself that was just hanging around there, 81.5. And that was Gardner Arledge sitting around 81.25. There was a lot of 80s that went up on that for sure. Yeah. That was a pretty strong day. Yeah. Cause I was sitting in 15th with 76 inches. So that's a good sign. That's definitely a good sign.
And those are some good numbers after the guys that are in our club, they're pretty experienced. That's after 2 good days, Thursday and Friday, of getting beat on in practice. I mean, a lot of guys are trying to find out their pattern. So you're winding up sticking some of them, we just generally are. That's just the way it is. And for those numbers to hold up for Saturday and a Sunday event after having a Thursday and a Friday beat down from practice, man, what a great little fishery.
18 limits out of 21 anglers, 18 limits that were put up on day one there. So that's pretty solid. Chen, what was your game plan, man? What you had never been there like me. So when you were looking at this thing, what was leading you how'd you make your decisions there?
Well, I guess technically I haven't been there for bass fishing. I guess it's been about 20 years, 16, 20 years since I was last there. Last there was I went with my dad. We used to go to Kansas and go fish all the crappie lakes and stuff, go out there, throw minnows out, and sleep overnight.
Were you like 6?
Yeah, I was like 6, 7, or 8. Yeah, 6, 7, or 8. So, that's when I was last there.
and you can remember that?
Yeah, I remember the little cove or the creek that's got that broken bridge. We used to camp there. They don't let you park right next by the bridge now, but back then they used to. And we used to camp there, go overnight, and throw minnows out, live minnows, and catch crappie. And it was amazing crappie fishery. I caught some wipers too. But no, my pre-fish, my game plan, since technically it's a brand new lake to me, I just wanted to cover as much water as I could. The only issue is I caught fish everywhere. You basically catch fish everywhere. But I knew that there were a good amount of creeks there, but they're not big. And regardless, even though we only have 21 anglers, that's quite a few anglers for how big those creeks are. It gets packed real quick. So I tried to focus more on not actually in those tiny little creeks, and I shook off every single fish I could. There was one fish I wanted to hook into just because I got tired of shaking off fish. I don't usually do that during practice, but every single fish I shook off, I was just flipping, shook them off. So I had no idea of where the bigger fish were actually, or if there were any bigger fish there. So but I basically just did that for practice, covered a lot of water and figure out the areas that I know there's gonna be a lot of people. Just like Nick says, I wanted to get away from people, especially being a 2-day tournament. I had a feeling that people are gonna fish the same place they did on day one, and I don't want to be fighting with the same people on day 2 that I was on day 1. I just didn't want to do that. So that was my game plan going into the tournament.
Good stuff. And so day one launches. You now where did you launch on day 1? Same place as Nick and James?
No, so it's kind of across the lake from Nick and James. I didn't get a chance to look at too many launches because I basically packed up Thursday night, didn't sleep, drove all night, got there, took like 30-minute nap, and then I didn't get a chance to look too many launches because I wanted to focus more on fishing than looking at launches. And after day 1, I was like, oh, there's some people launching there. That might be a good launch actually. And then that's where I launched on day 2. But it was basically across the main lake, or main lake from where they launched the first day.
So I had gone down to the south side, directly across from the marina. There's a launch down there that's kind of back, not the little peninsula that comes up by the spillway, but it's further to I guess it would be to the west of that. There's like a little cove that dives back in there. Day 1? No. Friday. I got there, the day before I always try to, see what the launch is going to look like, just like on tournament day. So I get there day before, still dark. As I pull my truck down, it's got this loop that you turn around in, and my headlights hit this camp there's somebody camping there, and it's this van, and it looks like someone took their stuff and just threw it everywhere, and there's something spray painted on the side of the van. And I'm like, yo, crack squirrels in effect, meth camp uno number one. And I'm like, nope, we're not doing this. I'm not spooking them, first thing this morning, because I was going to have to get way close to them, because they were right by the launch is where their stuff fell out of their van, I think. And so they decided to stay there. So I drove and left, and I went over to the spillway, and I launched over there, just off the shore, on that south side there. It was a little bit easier, but yeah, that was, so there are more than that, Chen. Is that what you're saying? Was it further away, or did you launch from the meth camp?
It was more west. It was basically the furthest west you could go on the south end.
Gotcha. Almost right up into that creek that runs up in there. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Cool.
all three of us wound up launching from the same area on day 2, 1, 2, and 3, right from the same ramp in the morning. On day 1, I ran into Nic there, and I could see Chen across the way. Like he was saying, he was across from us. And then when it was go time, I headed towards the dam, and then Nic went towards the channel, and then I seen Chen coming across the lake. So then Chen figured out that, hey, instead of crossing that lake and going down, I can just jump in, and that's when he launched with us. I do believe in that little area. I think it's called Prairie Dog Creek or something, a little camp area. And we also had a camper. Nic and I remember we ran across somebody, and we were worried about it. Like, man, what's going on here? It's just one dude with a tent propped up. But come to find out, it was some young kids there, and Nic said they were really cool. So it's pretty desolate when you get on that west side. It's a state wildlife area, so it's free camping. It's free everything. You don't, so you could get somebody there that's not there during practice through the week. You pull up on tournament morning on a Saturday, and there's 5 cars camped out with a big thing, having a huge party. People haven't even slept yet. You don't know what you're rolling into. So that's the chances of launching in those remote areas. It's like the banjos are playing as you're pulling in.
Dog, Google tried to get me off on the way in, man. I come in from the south side, I think, and it had me on this road Q.
Yeah.
Yep. And then it told me to turn into a field. It was like, make a left here. And I'm like, bro, that's like a cow pasture. That's not even a road, I don't think. But there was a couple hoof marks that I think made somewhat of a path. So I'm like, all right, Googs, I'm going to follow you. So I turn, and it literally takes you through a field for like a mile and a half, or maybe a half mile, something. And you get all the way down to this, as you're approaching this wooded area, you see this other road that's right by the lake. And I'm thinking, sweet, it's connecting me a little shortcut till I rounded the corner into the trees. And then there's a gate that's locked, and it says, it's basically locked up there. So there's no passing through. And I'm like, yo, is somebody going to jump out here? You just like set me up. What the heck is this? I'm getting bushwhacked out here. Holy hell.
Yeah, last year I went to a launch first in the morning. It's now affectionately known as Meth Van Launch. And it was so sketchy, I ended up leaving and going to my launch last year. Flanagan, he was out there. He braved it and slid his kayak down the hill off of that meth van. So they were just out there, catfishing and doing whatever weirdos do. So
yeah, man, it was a little bit funky. So I took matters into my own hands, told Google to shut up, and just got myself around the thing till I got back. But well, cool. So yeah, so day 1, lines out. We got Nic in first, Jim in second, Chen in third at the end of day 1. Day 2, there is something about a 2-day tournament, and this is a very cool thing that CKB has given guys an opportunity to really flex on this, because there is a different strategy, right, that comes into play with this. You got to be careful. You don't want to burn up all your groceries, but you also know that, day 2, who knows who's going to be coming in here. If I'm not fast enough, I could be losing out on this. All that goes into your head at night. Nick, what was going through your head? You're leading this thing after day one. What's going through your head that night? Was it just relax, throw it at, go for it, or what was your mindset?
Well, after day one, I was camping right in between Jimmy and ChenChar. So like we were all sitting there. Shout out to Sharon. She cooked like hot dogs and hamburgers for my birthday. It was like so cool.
That's awesome.
And Chen was like, oh yeah, like I was going to launch here. I think I'm going to launch across the lake. And I'm like, he's like, where did you launch? And I'm not trying to like, I was just like, hey man, no offense, but I think I'll just tell you that tomorrow. And he was like, oh no, I get it. And he was like, I think I'm going to go where Strawbridge launched. I was like, oh, well, spoiler alert, I'll see you in the morning. He was like, oh, what's that launch like? I was like, well, it kind of sucks at first, but other than doing the like 3 or 4 trips down there with all your stuff is the only part that kind of stinks. Luckily, James was doing some landscaping and made it a little easier for day one and day two. So
I did. It was pretty funny. So the water receded down because it was falling big time. I mean, it probably fell 6 inches by the time we were there in that 3 or 4 days,
Yep.
right? But there was these shelves, and those shelves were anywhere as what, Nick, 18 to 24-inch drop-offs. And then you come down, you have to drop off again. So you had your kayak on the cart. Like getting down is not a problem, but coming up at the end of the day, if you're by yourself, thank God I have Sharon with me. You need somebody on the other end to lift you up. And I'm like, okay, we're going to make this easier for everybody. I actually had a hammer back at camp. I told Sharon, run back to camp and get a hammer. And I used the claw of the hammer and I carved a ramp out of the 2 drop-offs so we can wheel our stuff up nice and easy. So I marked those with little bush things, little white rocks on the side so I could see it in the morning, let everybody else struggle. I'm going to go down this nice smooth ramp. But Nick found it and Chen found it. So I shared with everybody.
I found it the night before. After we went to dinner at 110 or whatever it was, I went down to that launch to see if I was going to have a bunch of crackheads, and see kind of who was planning on being there. Fished a little bit from the shore that night and did that. But to answer your question, I was contemplating changing everything. And launching at the marina for day 2. But talking to people, it didn't sound like anybody went over where I found my fish at all. And I was out of my area by 9:30 roughly on day 1. I went and checked a couple other areas on day 1 during the tournament. And when I came back, I didn't really see anybody. The only person I saw the whole day was Chen, and I saw him twice on day 1. So for me, I was contemplating changing everything, and then I just ended up doing the exact same thing that I did day 1.
Well, I mean, it worked, man. I mean, you still put up 80 and 3/4 inches on day 2, man. So I mean, that was a solid day there. So yeah, that makes total sense. Straws, what was
I know Nick was sweating too because he put up his 82 1/4 or whatever by like 10 o'clock in the morning, and he just couldn't find nothing else to get bit. And I was catching him throughout the day, upgrading a little bit here and there. And Nick came to me afterwards on day 1. He's like, my God, it was so painful to sit there. I just couldn't. Isn't that what happened? You couldn't, like, you put your best 5 on the board by like 10 o'clock in the morning. And it was like, can you imagine that feeling, just sitting there watching everybody just boom, 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 and still maintain the lead after day 1?
Well, and I accidentally uploaded a fish. I was going to do like all the rest of you dudes and just sandbag it. And I got a little bit pumped up when I caught that big fish, and I was looking at it to make sure it was all perfect. And instead of hitting cancel on my live well, I hit submit. And so I didn't want to just have, an over 18 for my only fish. I guess that could have mind screwed people in another way, but I just ended up uploading everything and not even trying to keep track of it because I thought I was just going to slowly upgrade more, and it never happened.
That's painful.
Yeah, it was 15 and a half after 15 and a half after 15 and a half.
There was a lot of those in there for sure.
I caught a lot of the same. It seemed like the same fish.
Right. Jim, day one, goes down. You were, sitting comfortably in second there, quarter inch behind. What was your thought? You're going to, run a Nic down? Is that what the thought was? Were you worried about guys coming in from behind?
You're always worried about that. But in my brain, I've been doing this long enough. I've trained myself to fish against the fish, not against the competition. Those guys are going to go out and they're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to do their job. They're going to look for the biggest fish as possible. I knew on going into day two, I had to hold my own. I couldn't let them get a jump, but I knew I was around some big fish. And it was just a matter of timing for me on day two. I had a choice to go to this one point on the south side, which on Friday practice, Saturday tournament, I jacked 3 giants off of that point. And I lost 2 of them on Saturday. That would have probably gave me the lead. And I knew they were there, and I jacked them every single day. But my other shot was where Chen was talking about, where there's an old bridge in the back of a cove. I know Kenny Hood was in there the day before on day one. And I thought, okay, if I can get to it first, it's kind of a community cove. You can't say it's yours or not. It's just the wind was blowing right into that area. It's the only way to get out of the weather that day. I'm like, if I can go into that little cove and I can jack 4 16s, I think I can maintain, at least cut a check. But in my head, I'm like, why would I go for 4 16s or 5 16s, maybe get lucky with a 17 when I know that point for the last 3 days has been holding 18s and 19s and a possible 20. So I went to that point and nothing came out of it. Come to find out, it was rotated through all day Friday. On Saturday, I fished in the morning, pulled 3 fish off of it, and then Collins came in behind me, and then somebody else came in behind him, and then Trev came in over there, and I'm like, man, it's getting hammered. So I made a bad decision on day 2 in the morning. I should have went to that cove where Kenny was going to go, and I knew I was going to have company. But if I could have got to those fish first, I could have possibly loaded my card with 16s or 17s. But man, when 18s and 20s were out there, I'm not lying. That one fish I lost, I seen his head. He came up and he was so big he couldn't even leave the water. His head was just like whoosh, 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 like 6 inches out of the water, and my bait comes flying off on that. And I'm like, they're there. So I just made a bad decision on Sunday. If I could do it all, I'm not saying I could have won, but if I could make my decision all over again, day 2, I would have went to that cove and loaded up on a higher bag of 16s rather than swing for the fences.
Yeah.
But I got to swing for the fences. You're going for the win. You don't have nothing else. So what do? That's the thing. It's all about decisions, and speaking of decisions, Chen wasn't even going to come to this tournament. I texted him, I'm like, dude, you going to go to Norton? And he texted me back. He says, I don't know if I should do this. I'm not being financially responsible. Right. I'm like, yeah, but you can do that afterwards. He's like, but I'm going to use all my personal time off of work. So I'm like, well, you do what you got to do, but I respect that. I get a text like 5 minutes later. He's like, I'm in. I signed up. So I want 20%.
Right. So Chen, did you think? I mean, did you figure you could go bag up another bag of 80 inches out there? Were you confident that you could find that again, or was it, hey man, just going to keep trying to cover as much water as possible and we'll see what goes up on the board? I mean, how confident were you? It's always better after day 1, in my opinion, to not be in the lead, because it's, what are you going to do, right? It's just all or nothing. The guy in the lead it's his to lose at that point. But if you're behind, it's like, nah, we're swinging because he's already got me beat. So I might as well go down, swinging. So did you feel like you could catch him on that, or?
I had no clue, because the reason was that after practice I had no idea what kind of fish were there, and then after the first day my biggest was like a 17 and a quarter or 17 and a half or something like that, and there's guys catching 18. So but what I did know was that I was getting bit good. I know that my spinnerbait, I was throwing a white and chartreuse spinnerbait. It was getting bit all the time, but I figured, yeah. No, it was, man. I had that thing locked in. Funny thing is, all practice I didn't throw the spinnerbait once. Didn't catch a single fish on the spinnerbait.
So I don't hold that chain of thought real fast, because the day after the tournament, I stayed an extra day. because I was going to Joplin, and so I needed to do a few extra things administratively. I had to do laundry, and I had to do some work on the pickup before I wanted to make that haul all the way to Joplin. So I stayed. Well, the urge was too good, so I went out the next morning, and I launched where you guys did, way up there, and I went out, and I stuck in my hand a white and chartreuse spinnerbait and threw that son of a bitch for 2 hours and caught one 9-inch fish. The final reel in, I'm like, Chen's so full of shit. He didn't know. He probably was throwing a jig. That's what he was throwing, black and blue jig.
No, I don't. Maybe it was the area or just the spinnerbait stuff. I don't know if they were picky or not, or if they all got just jacked. But I mean, I think I still got one tied on over here somewhere. I think it's right there. I still got it tied on, man. I'm still using that thing. But it was crazy.
It could have been anything. It could have been the reel speed. It could have been the where were you running it compared to where I was running it. Wherever you throw. I mean, there's so many things. People think that a spinnerbait is an easy deal. There's so many ways you can fish a spinnerbait, man. And the cadence has everything to do with it. Slow rolling it or speeding it across, one guy's catching fish, another guy's like me for 2 hours not catching anything.
I mean, look,
but go ahead. Please continue.
You got 1, 2, and 3 here, each throwing something different in the same exact area. That says to the fishery right there.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, the funny thing is I didn't throw the spinnerbait and catch anything on practice at all. It was day one. And in the morning, I always like to throw moving baits or topwater, because your topwater ones usually you can trick the big ones for sure. And then your moving baits, especially if they're reaction, you're going real fast, you can trick those big ones when it's low light and stuff like that. And that's usually when I get my biggest bites. So I decided, okay, I'm gonna throw a spinnerbait or a jackhammer or chatterbait, whatever it is. For some reason, they didn't really like the jackhammer. For me, at least, they steered away from that. As soon as I threw a spinnerbait in the same area, I don't know if it's a vibration or the flash, but I caught my first 2 fish in the same exact spot off the spinnerbait. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna keep throwing this. It's quick enough to fish, so I can cover water, and I'm still getting decent size on here, so I can get what I need to out of it. But after you catch so many on that thing, you're like, I'm just gonna have it locked in my hand. There's no reason for me to switch now, right? Especially after day one, caught my 17. Maybe it was just because there wasn't 18s there, or maybe they wanted something else. But all I knew was that, okay, I'm catching decent fish on this thing. I'm gonna keep throwing this. Had that locked in my hand on day 1 and day 2. I did do some flipping just to get into that really thick stuff, but that was the only flipping I did pretty much. And they were just biting. I think it was more so the area than anything, because where I was, nobody was beating that up, and no one fished there. I think I saw 1 or 2 people on day 1 in the exact area. I saw more people, but they weren't fishing that exact area. And the people that I did see came right by. They maybe took 1 or 2 casts, kept going. I was fishing like stupid shallow. Like I had to kick up fins with my Hobie, so you can kick them up, and they're kind of like, they're usually like this, but you can kick them up where they're like that, and you can flap in less water. And there were times where I actually had to use my net to push myself off the actual bottom, because it was just so shallow, extremely, extremely shallow. Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. What kind of spinnerbait was it?
It was a Bassman. It was a Bassman spinnerbait. Really like those spinnerbaits, because you got a bunch of different options, right? You got Colorado. I mean, I don't throw Colorado so much, but more so you got tandems and you got your double willows. They make compact ones, which is the one I like to throw the most, the compact. And they have a mag willow, which is like an in-between, which is my favorite, because I think it gives a good amount of vibration, but you're not basically slowing down that spinnerbait so much with the Colorado. With the Colorado, you can't burn that thing, otherwise it'll just blow out, start coming to the top of the water, Yep. So it was like that perfect. But the problem is, the only thing I don't like about it is the skirt, the way they have it on. It's just banded on. That band will come undone, and the skirt material will come out. So I end up having to tie my own skirt material on there, or just tie it something around it. But man, they work, dude. I don't care if it breaks after 3 fish, but man, if they work, I'll buy it and I'll use it.
I felt the same way about those damn flapper frogs. Those things, after I threw them up there in La Crosse and have taken them elsewhere, they're $12, $13 a piece, and you get like, 2-3 fish on it, and the damn guts are pulling out. You got to keep reseating it, this and that. They're kind of not real great there, but by God, they catch fish. So it's like, yeah, okay, fine, I'll keep throwing it. So, Nick, what was your end all beat all in second place? What was what was the bait that was getting her done for you, or was it a conglomerate of them?
For day one, it was buzzbait. I was throwing a finesse buzzbait, but was only catching 9 and 10-inch fish. I switched to the biggest buzzbait that I had and stopped getting bites. So I ended up going to like a middle of the road. It was the black and gold Matt Flanagan special in 3/8. But they only wanted it really slow, like just being able to keep it on the water. And by the end of day one, I knew the cadence. Like when I would get it perfect, you knew you were about to get bit, and then you'd watch them shark up on it, which is the coolest thing in the world. And then they'd smash it. I was catching fish on an underspin, like a flashy swimmer, as well. But that was not, I wasn't able to fish it clean. I lost a lot of fish on it. I don't think it was anything that was too crazy big. But jackhammer, buzzbait, and then like the 1-2 punch, like, if they hit the buzzbait and missed it, I would throw in a wacky rig at them, right after and fill it up, with that. And then I found out a weird bite, the end of day 2. I was talking to James about it. I think I'll keep that one to me for until the end of until after October 5th. So if anybody wants to know what that is after October 5th, let me know. I'll tell you. James knows what it is. I don't think he'll spoiler alert me, but
Nice.
almost all my fish came on a 3/8 ounce black and gold War Eagle buzzbait, until I smashed it against my trolling motor. Like Chen, I was finding them pretty shallow, especially day 2. Day 2, they were in inches of water. So I had my motor up, my motor guide up, and I was feeling great the whole weekend. I could put that thing almost wherever I wanted it. Like I had tons of confidence. I was fishing it well. I was fishing it pretty clean for the most part. And then I bounced that sucker off my trolling motor, and it was literally like, it was 90-degree angle. In fact, I took a picture of it. It was so crazy. But it was a 90-degree angle, and it never ran right after that. I didn't get any more bites after I straightened it all out. So
You knocked all the juju out of it.
and I knocked the brakes off of that deal. But the rest of the day it was just junk fishing. And I was catching decent fish. Just I needed a 16, and I was catching. I must have caught. I think I caught like 10, 15, and 15 16ths. Like
Wow.
I just couldn't get a bigger bite on day 2.
Dang. Still had an 80 and 3/4 day, man. That's a solid day 2. So Straws, what color of drop shot were you catching all your fish on?
No drop shot, man. Matter of fact, I think on day 2, I don't think I had a spinning rod in the boat.
Nice.
I knew I was going. I think I had a spinner bait because I thought it would play, but I just kept it laying down on the side in the Hobie down there. But I had a jig and 2 stroker craws. My 2 stroker craws were white, and they were both on 35-pound braid. And then my other one was on fluorocarbon in case I was getting all knotted up in those trees. Because I was, like Chen said, the way I was flipping, I was just like, kiss this bait goodbye. It's just every time, just throw it so far in the trees. If I get bit, I'll worry about how I'm going to get that fish out. But if you never throw there and you don't get bit, then you can't clue in on what's going on. So as the days went on, I could figure out, hey, I know there's going to be a fish tucked in there, and I'm not going to throw in that conglomerate. I'm going to kind of sneak around and throw in the opening. So if I do get bit, I've got an area to take that fish out of all those trees. And on day 2, I rolled up on Josh Gardner. He was in a cove on the north side, and he was fishing a grass line. So we talked a little bit, and then I went around to the trees. And let's see, we were done at noon on Sunday. We fished till noon. At 11:47, I submitted a 16.5-inch fish, which was the one that put me in third because I pulled into the cove, and Josh was like, "You got your 5?" And I'm like, "Nope." And he was working a weed line down there, and he was pretty hard on it. So I went across from him on the other side, and I flipped in there, and I pulled a 16.5 out, and I'm like, "Oh my God, this could do it."
That was your big fish for the day, yeah.
Yeah, it was, with about 15 minutes left. So,
awesome.
And I was getting pretty bummed because I knew what I had going on day one. And once again, like you said, Gene, managing those fish, and it's not how you manage them, it's how much they've been abused by other anglers. So, I've learned a lot, even after doing this for a long time, that I don't think I would ever go back and repeat an area on a 2-day tournament if it got beat up again, like I saw it get beat up on day one from other anglers, not from me. It got too much, but I got lucky at 11:47. Really.
But so day 2 was a shortened, and it was day 2 of a tournament, and we only had 13 limits brought in that day, so much less. And I got to tell you, I was actually really surprised at some of the names that didn't find their limits for day 2. There's some heavy hitters in there, real serious heavy hitters. So yeah, it is not a guaranteed thing for sure. You were talking about that thrown in the middle of garbage. So on day 1, it was day 1. I went in this little area, this little tiny cove, and at the very back of the cove is like some lay down trees that kind of separate off these pools. It's a little bit further, back, and it's just slack water back in there, right? Well, I had a frog tied on because I'm me. So I grab my frog, my hollow body frog, and I sling it back in there. And I'm twitching a little bit, and I get nothing. When I grab that flapper frog and I sling it back in there, and I start slow pulling it, and you just hear gurgling, coming through the water with those feet. Well, it disappears behind the logs on me, and I've just got my pole tip up in the air so I can, not get it into the trees. And as it's out of sight, I hear somebody flush the toilet. Skaloosh. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, 1,000. I reel down and whack. I set the hook. I couldn't even see it. And so I set the hook, and next thing I know, I'm sitting here reeling, and I pull, and a damn fish comes up and over the tree. He helped. He jumped right at the same time that I was pulling, and bang, he come over that tree. But yeah, sometimes you got to get into those places where you can't see anything, right? And just try to. Those are some fun. I've done that before, though. You cast in, and you're like, I have no idea how I'm going to get him out of here, but let's deal with that problem if I get there. All right.
Yeah, you got to find out, because that's a clue. That's a piece to the puzzle. You can make your adjustments from there on how you entry into that stuff from different angles and different positions. But I don't know about you guys, but do you guys all agree? Are these not the meanest fish, or the fish with the most teeth you have ever seen in your life? Like, red willow fish are mean, a 20 inch is mean, but I swear a 15.5-inch fish at Norton, I would have swore it was a 17-inch fish until I saw it. Like, they are some fierce, pissed off fish.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Every single time I set the hook, I was like, that's a big, and it'd come in, it's like, you put it on the board, and you're like,
Chen's going all Iconelli out there in his kayak. It's a big one.
Yeah.
It's a big one.
Yeah, they fought freaking hard, and the first thing as soon as they knew they were hooked, they'd go straight to the surface for the water. I think that's a main reason why a lot of people lost fish too. I think that's a big reason why I think us three were still in the top 3. I don't know how clean you guys fish, but a lot of the guys I talked to lost a lot of fish, and a lot of guys did. But that's just.
I lost my first 3 keepers.
Wow.
On day one, or I don't think they weren't crazy big, but they were definitely scoreable, 14.5s, 15s.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just anything subsurface, like for me, a chatterbait. As soon as they would hit it, you just feel the line rising, and they were out of the water, just going berserk. It was, I lost a few fish. I don't know if there was any that would have let me catch Chen, but I lost a couple fish that probably would have been good. They felt great.
Dude, those bass, their teeth are very sharp. I think I heard this somewhere. I forgot where. I think it was Wire to Fish, but I think the reason why is because they're mainly shad eaters, and the shad are, they're soft. It doesn't take much to actually tear those apart. You can squeeze them apart with your fingers. But a crawdad, crawdads, they will dull their teeth out, I think is what they said.
I saw Chen's fingers after day one, and he had like Band-Aids all over everywhere. I don't have like a cool little hand cut kit. So by the end of day two, picking up a fish, I was like, oh my God, this sucks. Like my thumbs were completely ripped up.
Chen, do you tell me you like got a duffel bag with like bag balm and stuff like that in it?
No, I just have a first aid kit, and then I throw some working hands in there. That's it. Just first aid kit. Because I remember one time I got hooked in the hand, and that was the one time I didn't have the first aid kit. That sucked. I ended up using like a sticker as a bandage. I used a sticker off of like one of my bait bags, like the label, you know, and it has the barcode. I just peeled it off and like, I'll just throw that on there so it stops bleeding.
Nick and we wipe the sweat off our brow, and then we grab a handful of dirt and you pack that in there, and that's how you deal with it.
I don't know about that, whining and crying. And I already put together like a little cut like kit like for dealing with it, because my hands hurt for days after that tournament just from teeth.
Yeah.
That's what I want to hear.
I heard the same thing that if they're primarily shad eaters, they will have a stronger set, you know, of chompers on them because they haven't been. And I didn't see a ton of crayfish. I know they're in there, but I didn't see like nothing like Colorado where it's, you know, just oodles of them here. You know, they're just nonstop. Yeah. But yeah, for sure, bait fish was the name of the game. That seemed to be. So Chen comes in day two. He leads it with 82.5 for day two. Brian White, man, he had a hell of a day. He come back 81 3/4. Kenny Hood repping well, 79 1/4. Of course, Flanahammer, he made a shot at it at 78.5. Arledge, consistency through and through, 77 1/4. Strawbridge was in seventh at 77 1/4. Bricklin had a good bounce back day there at 76. Kern was 9th, Lovell was 10th, and I was in 11th. Massimo, and you know what? Hats off to Massimo, man. This has to be one of Massimo's best tournaments. He submitted fish that had identifiers in them. It was a solid day for my man, the Italian stallion with the CKB here. That was awesome. So hats off.
And he had massive problems with his kayak. I saw him.
Oh my God.
He was paddling with his kayak and still fishing. And guess what? We haven't even talked about the wind that was there both days, coming out of the south, blowing on the North Shore. And he was on the north side into that wind out there, flipping and pitching and cranking with no pedals, just a straight up paddle. I watched him. What an amazing job. Shout out to Massimo, man. Way to tough it out up here, because I'll be honest, I would have folded. Folded, and I would have went to the other end of it, and I would have just quit. Honestly, I would have. For him to have that mental capacity to keep going like that, hats off to Massimo.
Dude, he was telling the story of how it went down on day one, and good God, we were in tears at the meeting at the end of day one. This poor guy, the amount of it was like a Benny Hill show, right? That was going off. The poor guy. Around every corner, he had this break. He broke the arm off his transducer. So he was blind. He had no electronics. He had no motor or no pedals. I mean, the guy was just, and yeah, like you said, he kept it together. He's had his espresso and one of those tasty ass pastries he let us sample, and he went to work.
Another guy was Jamie. His rudder broke, and he was doing the same thing. He was like using his paddle as like a makeshift rudder, and he was out on the main channel fishing around too, with no rudder. And not only was it broken, it was gone. Like it fell off of his kayak like day one, or like during practice.
And that's a testament to the guys and gals that fish, the with us out here, man. It's especially when you drive 5 hours, nobody wants to cancel that in. So it's super cool. We got some stuff in the works here that hopefully I'll be able to have some cool announcements for next year, where we might be in a position to help with said issues at these tournaments for next year. We got a new possibility of a new dealer coming on with New Canoe here in the state, and they're very interested in finding ways to support the anglers at these tournaments. And so that's one of the areas I told them could be super, super big, and they really like the idea of that. So we'll have to see how that goes. But yeah, man, that was that was definitely the deal out there. So yeah, so day 2 gets all locked up, and the final totals come in. ChenChar, 164.5 inches, wins the deal. That's a solid day. That's a pair of 82s both days, coming out of that water. Nic, right there on his tail at 163.25, also a pair of 80-inch days. Strawbridge, day 2, day 1 was the big day, 82.25. Day 2 left a little window open there, but 159.5. You go all the way down here, man. All the way through the ranks, it was solid. The number of fish that come through this, total fish caught 227 for 21 anglers.
That's 10 apiece. That's a 10 average for each person.
Yeah, that's solid production. That's and plus, as you said, a lot of you guys got there really damn early, and were wiping out Gene's favorite fishing hole on purpose. So I mean.
And that doesn't even include the fish that weren't submitted, right? I'm sure there's a lot of fish. Yeah. If you catch your biggest fish, best 5 right off the bat, there's probably another 10, 15 fish that they never put on the board ever or submitted. Yep. So that's crazy for a 2-day tournament. And the 2-day tournament thing is awesome. I think we are implementing it into next year's season more so. And then it definitely makes you have to strategize a lot more, for sure. But I liked it. I know Nic probably hates it for sure.
Yeah, I was kicking myself a little bit because I know I was one of the ones that advocated in last year's meeting to make Norton a 2-day. And at the end of day 1, I was like, "You're a dummy, man. You should not have done that." But it's great. I had a great 2 days of fishing. I wouldn't trade it for nothing. Chen's the man. He showed up and put it on us day 2.
I do want to say something real quick too. At the end of the tournament on day 2, I didn't do this on purpose. All right, when I don't sandbag on purpose, I don't have good service. But anyways, we get to the ramp because we're packing up, and I'm going through my fish. I'm sorting through, and I'm trying to submit them. They're not going through. I got 1 bar of like LT whatever. So Nic and James both just tried to help me out. Nic's like, "Hey, dude, I can do the Wi-Fi hotspot. Tried that, didn't work." And he's like, "All right, I can log out of Torniax. You can log in. If you have your fish in live well, you can log in mine, and we can get it going through." I did try to log in, and I think it was because I was still logged in on my phone. It gave this error like my password was wrong, but then it made me second guess, like, what if my password is wrong and I just don't remember? So I was like, shoot, screw it. I'm going to drive to the highway, wait until I get service, then I'll submit it, and I was able to do that. But knowing that, and I didn't know that what I had. So I didn't know that Nic, I didn't even look at this leaderboard at all on day 2. I didn't know that Nic was in number 1 right there in that spot at the leaderboard. And for him to still offer to help me after I kind of gave him a sum, like an estimated sum of what I had, we kind of concluded that I think I had beat him, but we don't know for sure until it gets submitted right and approved. But the fact that he was able to, and he wanted to help me submit my fish, even though it ended up letting him win, is a huge thing. And I'm going to get Nic Vision 110 because he did that. And I told him I was going to get him something. He's like, "No, you don't need to give him." He's like, "Dude, I get pretty much everybody in the group. I know everybody in the group would have done the same thing, but the fact that he did, and we ended up 1, 2, and 3 is like the craziest thing, Like, and it is my responsibility, and everyone knows that. I wouldn't have had any personal or ill feelings towards Nic if he said, "No, I can't." Like, that's your responsibility. It's your job to submit your fish on time. I would have been more than like, "Yeah, you know what? You are 100% right." But for him to try to give me his phone, do a Wi-Fi hotspot, like everything, man. He stayed there and watched my stuff when I drove off to get service just so I could submit my fish in time. So big props to him. So I got a Vision 110 coming for him in my favorite color.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, Chen and I talked about it, and James and I talked about it too. Like, let's say you did that to somebody. Well, then there's like the asterisk next to it, right? Like, and who wants to win like that? That's garbage. Chen's I kind of felt bad because when I came in, I did like a donut right next to him with my trolling motor. I was like, take them waves, Chen. Ha ha. And then he was like, no, I'm really having issues. I'm like, oh shit. And then like, was that day 2 or was it day 1, Jamie, that your kayak just took off?
I did. Day 2.
Was that the same day?
Oh God, yeah. No, that's day 2 was a fiasco down at the Prairie Dog ramp. It was, yeah.
Oh, it was because Chen was gonna go get your boat while he was trying to figure out how to upload his fish to win. Right. He was like, "Oh, I'll go out and get it." Like, no, dude, figure out your fish, man. What are you doing?
Yeah, or I'm gonna go swimming. So thankfully, I turned around. What happened is I had my battery, my NK, and all my stuff on the back of the boat. And I pulled it all out, and it lightened up the boat. And Sharon and I turned around and walked up the hill, and we looked back, and there goes my kayak just floating out in the middle of the lake. And I'm like, I'm going swimming, and Nick's like, no. And Shen's like, I'll get it. And I'm like, no, you load your fish. And I'm like, I'll jump in. And Nick's like, no, don't get wet. I'll go get it. Just keep loading stuff. So, I mean, talk about 1, 2, and 3, like Chen said. That's the stuff as a tournament director for CKB that I try to teach everybody, and it makes me feel good that we have a group of guys that does that for each other without going the other direction and making it so competitive that we're cutting each other's throat and not helping each other out about it. I'm very proud of that. So I appreciate what you guys do. Thank you for that.
And that's the piece, is that we can compete at the highest level, man. But when, outside those bells though, I mean, you guys are my friends. That's how I look at each and every one of you. And there isn't, you guys know my feeling on the whole karma thing. Karma's a real deal, man. You got to pay stuff forward. In that piece there is taking care of, your neighbors or whatever you need to do. So it's super cool hearing those stories, because most of the time all we hear about is the shit. So it's good to hear the good, that goes on out there as well.
Yeah.
And
sure.
Yeah, man, I think it's, top to bottom. I think there's some, I wouldn't expect any one of my fellow anglers to go burn down my hole before day 1. I mean, who would do that? I'm joking. I didn't have a hole there.
Honestly, I'm joking too, because I honestly really wanted to fish the marina.
I was going to say,
I was leaning on them. They were still there. I still say I could have went there on Sunday. Once again, a decision.
Yeah.
I could have went there on Sunday, and I think I could have stuck the fish I needed to. Maybe take a top 5, but I don't know. I'm sticking to what I know. So
it's where I started. Bricklin had a great day, and he was in there. He had a day 2. He had a solid day in there, and because of that wind, a lot of guys actually come up in there for day 2. Yeah, no, it's the reason I know I'm giving you crap about this is because the first day of practice I get there. Well, I've been testing out a new bait. It's called a bladed grass jig from BA Baits. Now, I threw this in lacrosse, and I got to tell you, this thing, I've never found a bladed jig or spinner bait, and that's what this is if a spinner bait and a bladed jig fell in love, they'd make one of these things, and that's what it is. Well, it comes through grass like nothing I've ever seen. And I'm like, dude, this is amazing. I was throwing it through the thick cabbage at lacrosse all day long and hardly bringing back any salad with it. And I'm like, this is phenomenal, man. What is this? But I didn't catch a damn fish on it. So I'm like, well, it casts and retrieves great, but yeah, I got to catch something. Well, I threw it at Norton, and like my 3rd cast, I hook into one. And I hook this and I bring it in. I'm like, well, look at that. It's like a 15. And the moment I get it up, Strawbridge is off to my right. He goes, yeah, burn it down, buddy. Burn it down. And I'm like, burn what? I caught one damn fish. And he's laughing away over there. I'm like, what's going on? So,
one fish, I ain't burning it down.
I barely got the match lit. But yeah, I actually caught several fish on that thing there. So it's I'm a kind of a believer now. It's got its time and place, it's a unique look. It's something a little different, but it wasn't a player for me on tournament days by any measure. That was definitely the rock crawler. That got all my biggest fish, that rock crawler. Off the dam and anywhere around it, any wind blown point. That's where I was finding the bigger fish. And it was just bouncing right off the bottom, about 7-8 foot deep, because that rock crawler will dive down that far, and they dive quick. And as long as I was bouncing off the bottom, we were getting smoked. Shit, I was hung up on a rock over by the dam, and I'm keeping my kayak in the nose in the wind, right? And it's blowing, man. It's blowing on me, and I'm hooked behind me here is where I'm hung up. And I'm like, I don't want to turn off the motor and drift back into the rocks. So I'm just snapping that line over and over, and I get it for some slack. Well, I go, pow, and I reel, and I feel it come loose. And I'm like, sweet. Just as it comes loose, whack, freaking 16 smokes it. Literally as it come out of the rock, 16 combined just drilled it. And I'm like, oh, it's stuck again. So yeah, ton of fun. Well, listen, guys, you guys put on a clinic there, man. That was super cool to watch. I think we all agree it's definitely a fishery worth going to. Norton, Kansas has I will say this, Sundays and Mondays, they roll the streets up and put them in a bag. There was nothing open on Sundays and Mondays. It was dead that evening. Your Subway stays open. That's still a good thing. But yeah, laundromat was a cool little laundromat if you need it. I needed one load definitely, because I don't have 14 pairs of socks and underwear. So I needed fresh skivvies to make the Joplin run.
You don't want to turn them inside out and backwards? Get 3 days out of them.
No, dog. I was going to public. This was not a fishing. Fishing was kind of done. We had a field ops event, one more day of fishing on Wednesday, but I had to, be around other people other than my homies. So.
Makes sense. That makes sense.
For sure. But yeah, man, it's, the people there in Norton were super cool. A lot of cool amenities. The camping, how was it there? You all three camped there. How's the camping? Awesome sites?
It was awesome. It was great. Yeah. Awesome.
I loved it.
Showers.
Yeah, one of the best campgrounds. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Clean showers and such.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, showers are
not so clean after
Thursday
Strawbridge
was a little
uses
rough.
it.
Yeah, after Strawbridge is done.
Yeah, well, go in there barefoot. I'd shower with some Crocs on or something. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's community shower. Like, let's not get crazy.
Camping, as far as camping goes, it's going to be great. I know we're going there in August next year, 16th and 17th. So it's going to be hot. I'm going to contemplate whether I'm going to go get a hotel next year, or if I'm going to go back to the campsite. I don't care if you're in the shade. August in Kansas, it's still going to be 105. I don't know if the wife's going to survive that. I'll survive it, but I don't want to keep her out in the heat for 5 days straight. If she can go back to her room, I might get a room when we go in August, though. But as far as the time of year when we just went, great campsites, electricity, and they have a water spigot on each one of those sites at the Shady Rest. So if you brought a little bit of a hose or something, it was like we even did dishes after we cooked out and everything. So it was one of the better campsites. I have to give them props.
I gotta say also a shout out to Brooks Motel, man. That place was ridiculously clean. I mean, very, very clean there. They catered to anglers. When they set us up there, they put, there were like three or four of us that were, all staying there. And she put us all kind of side by side to each other. So all the anglers were, side by side off to a very far corner that was well lit and secure back there. So you could back your truck and your kayak right to your door. It was super cool. Great prices. I want to say it was like $60 or something with some tax thrown in. Fridge, microwave, the whole setup, real friendly staff there. Yes, a Brooks Motel, air conditioner worked fantastic. It was solid through and through. So, well, listen, boys, I appreciate you coming in here and yapping with me and giving us all the juice here. Pueblo's up next, gentlemen. How we feeling, right?
How was it, Chen?
It wasn't bad. It's definitely, the lakes, I'd say it's turning over right now. Water clarity is getting a little bit more murky, especially with the wind. It's been very windy all the days I'm going out, but water's low. Water's very low compared to when we last went, and I think they're still dropping it a little bit. They might have put a plug in it, but it's still dropping quite a bit, or it's still very, very low for what we usually fish. So it'll be very interesting. That's all I can say. Water temps are getting colder too. These nights, we camped out there. Me and Gardner camped out there a couple weeks ago, and at night it was actually kind of cold. I should have brought like 2 blankets instead, but yeah, it's a good time. It's still, let's say the size.
Snuggle up with Gardner. He looks like he generates a lot of heat.
Oh yeah,
Snuggle
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say size, getting those few kickers is going to be very, very, very key in this tournament. So that's all I got to say.
Gotcha.
I'm hoping with timing October 5th. I'm hoping it's not, water ski central. So I think what that could possibly do is open up distance for guys. So you could launch at DOW and wind up wherever you want. You could launch from the south and wind up at DOW, right? I mean, and still come back. Like Gardner, I don't know if you guys know this. I don't know if he wants me to say it, but I'm going to say it anyways because he's AOY, and we're going to try to do what we can to kick his ass so he doesn't win. At Norton, he launched from the dam at that south point, and I saw him in that cove way down at the west end. He went from one end of the lake to the other and then back, and it was all that wind. Like, that's the kind of runs that we're starting to see here in Colorado that's changing things now that we all have motors. Pueblo is going to get opened up big time come in the next week here when we go down. I think guys are going to be able to get to areas, no wake boats. Safety's not going to be much of a factor because we're not going to get trampled. It's going to be a really interesting tournament. Guys are going to find fish that we normally wouldn't have access to. That's my opinion.
That would be good. I'd like to see it open up. I'd like to see that western side actually come into play, And, and
for
put
sure.
something up there.
Yeah, I mean, what was it? Is it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday we went out there. DBM did a tournament, and the most of the field struggled quite a bit, but the guy that won it came up with like 15.3 pounds or something like that, 15 pounds 9 ounces or something. So really, really good bag on his part. I'd say at least all of them were all over 17 inches easily. Not saying that we would be able to find that because we're in a kayak unless they're all in the same area, but just knowing that they're big fish like that are biting, he got a bag. 15-pound bag at Pueblo is pretty good. That's pretty crazy. So,
yeah. Well, good stuff, man. That's next on the docket for CKB. That'll be the final. We're going to crown an AOI. We're going to crown a state champion, and we're going to be sending. Hopefully, if we get more than 30 people to sign up, we're going to be sending 3 people to Lake Fork in 2025. Now, the TPO podcast will be there one way or another. I would really like to have a schedule conflict so that says that I have to fish the national championship first. So, yeah. Now, I know Pueblo, and Gene, these words don't rhyme. They don't go together. I get it. But you never know. Even the sun shines on a dog's ass every now and again, suckers. So we're going to be there, and we're going to be in fishing free like we just did, which is I got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So we going for something big every time. So let's see. But yeah, I'd like to see the 3 faces that we're going to send over there because Fork is going to be just off the chain, man. So this could be a ton of fun. A lot hanging on the line for Pueblo and the CKB.
Yeah, lots coming up. I mean, it's going to be a big one, and I'll throw it out here. There's been chatter. We're going to have another meeting, the CKB will here coming up in November, our yearly end of the year meeting where we can kind of go over some stuff and some things we're going to have to vote on. But I've been hearing a lot of slack, and not slack. It's good. It's good recommendations. We're going to vote on it, but there's been talk about guys wanting a 2-day championship in 2025.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know. Once again, I leave that up to the anglers. I'm the tournament director, but some things we vote on, some things I just implement because I feel it's best for the club, for the direction I want it to go. But we're definitely going to put a vote in come November for a possible 2-day championship, and I think we'll do 2 full days since it's going to be in town. That would be my suggestion. So look forward to that in 2025.
I'm down. I don't know about Chen, but I'm definitely down for that.
Are you sure, Nick? I'm just kidding. Definitely. No, I'm definitely down. I think it proves that the person that we send or the people that we send truly earned it, for one. And not only that, it mirrors what the National Championship is going to be, which is going to be a 2-day tournament. So, if anything, we're going to be. I know for sure Colorado's going to be sending the best that Colorado has to offer. So
good stuff. Agreed. Just a friendly reminder, folks, at the end of the season, our final event outdoors of the season is Veterans Day. That is, we started it last year. We're going to keep it going. This is the 2nd annual Veterans Day weekend camping and fishing trip with the TPO down at Pueblo Reservoir. Please come join us. If you have a veteran, if you know a veteran that you'd like to get out on the water, you think would have a blast out there, get in touch with us. We're going to probably close off registration like a week out from this. It's November 9th and 10th. That's a Saturday, Sunday. Then Veterans Day is Monday, so we'll be there that morning. We won't be leaving too crazy early that Monday morning. But then we'll be, getting home. Everybody can probably, get home. If you want to come out for just the day, come out for just the day. If you want to come out and camp, come out and camp. Again, we'll make sure we have enough kayaks, enough space. We're going to rent a few camp spots ourselves. We'll have those for you. If you bring a tent or you got a camper or whatever, we can work that out and figure out how we can squeeze all that in there. But please come out for vets and such. We're going to feed you. We're going to take you fishing. It's not going to cost you a thing. Hopefully there'll be some cool swag from some sponsors wanting to help support us for this second annual event here. We had an amazing time last year, and hopefully this year will be even better. We have a beanbag game set up there. If we have too many folks for kayaks, we'll do it in shifts. We'll rotate it around 3-4 hours at a time. But I think we'll have plenty of kayaks. We're collaborating with Heroes on the Water, and I know they have said that we are allowed and capable of borrowing some of theirs if needs be. So I think we have plenty. And then plus the anglers always tend to show up and go, hey, I got an extra yak if you need it, and they bring it down. If you want to volunteer to help with this, to help guide on this, please hit me up. And all kayak anglers, that want to attend, come on down, join us for this thing, man. Get some pictures of the thing, hang out, have some good food. And it's a good deal. November 9th, November 10th, second annual Veterans Day weekend, Fishapalooza. Nah, I don't like that. I just tried that. I was just trying that for the first time. I don't like Fishapalooza.
Too common, too easy.
Yeah, I think that's Drew's thing. Drew's got the Palooza thing locked up, right? Everywhere he goes with his stuff, so let's let him have that. We'll stay in our lane over here. Gentlemen, thank you so very much. Mr. Strawbridge, the Weatherman, and ChenChar, thank you guys. Those shirts are fantastic. And yeah, we need to see some Trocar stuff on there. We need to see.
Yeah, I got to get one.
Right?
I got a spare one of these, Nick, but man, it's going to be tight on you.
Hey, I'm going to. Yeah, I probably wouldn't wear that then.
That guy in a little shirt.
Oh, it's ridiculous, man. Too many fatty cakes.
I feel you, dog. I feel you. All right, boys. Thank you so very much. You guys take care. We will either see you at Chatfield with CKFC. I know that's coming up. I might jump in that just because I can sleep in my own bed. That's kind of crazy. And then Pueblo. So, as always, folks, make sure follow along. So hit the subscribe, hit the follows. And now at the end, we got a echo going on here. Who is that? Oh, somebody. Was it Nick? Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, hit those subscribe button on YouTube. That's what we need to help with. Follows, likes, shares, all that good stuff. We couldn't do this stuff without you if you're watching it recorded. Thank you so very much. Tight lines. Be safe.